Somebody asked me a great question on Twitter because we threw it out there like, hey, if you got any questions for Sage, then throw them at us. And you did start games in your career, but spent a lot as a backup quarterback. And they were curious, the tweeter, about the value that you bring to a team as a good backup quarterback. Because I had Mike Triplett.
You can't pay them enough.
I had Mike Triplett.
They should give money to the guys who didn't make as much, because those guys should always be getting paid more.
Well, the ESPN reporter from the Saints, Mike Triplett, said that Teddy Bridgewater brought a ton of value just because the defense loved practicing against him because he could emulate the other offense.
Yeah.
Like usually you don't have someone who was a first round pick and won 11 games as your backup. So he was giving the defense better look. So I think they were curious about, just on a weekly basis, if you're not starting, what value you bring to your team.
I think there's a lot, just the camaraderie, the support of the starter. You're looking things in meetings and to maybe help the starter see the things you see and sort of create conversation. I think that's the thing that happens a lot in quarterback's room is conversation. What happens if we do this? If we do that, could we rig it this way? When we see this, could we do this? And, there's this game plan, but things do change and evolve over the course of the week because you just keep watching more and more film, 3-4 hours a day or whatever it is. So you start to see more things. You see how things look in practice. Nah, that didn't look very good. Let's sort of throw that out. That's a bad idea. Or you start to see more tendencies. So I think there's a lot of value there. I think there's value of I like working with the receivers. After practice, the young guys, try to develop those young guys. We'd be doing drills together, try to get my extra thrown and things like that. So I think there's a lot there, just being a positive team member, somebody that's giving tips on the sidelines. I think, that's a spot in the game. So it's one of those things, the longer you're around, you've just seen so much football. And we've all if you play middle school football, high school football, college football, or just watch a lot, that's really your only experience. But really, the NFL game is so much more complex and sophisticated and detailed because you have so much more time. This is your full-time job. This is it. You're thinking about it, talking about, working on it for 10, 12 hours a day for a lot of the year. That's way more than college football. That's way more than high school football, which is a couple hours after school, and then you go play your games. You don't have all this meeting time and detail time and study time and advanced playbooks and all these things that teams do. And so you can add that value the more you have in the league. But doesn't mean you're great. I always say that a good backup quarterback wins half of his games. And I had started 12 games and I was 6-6. So maybe that's why I say that. But I do think you don't sign a backup quarterback to win you the Super Bowl. It's to keep you in the hunt for the Super Bowl, to not have the season completely fall off the table. So I think a guy that's does all those good locker room things, maybe doesn't always challenge the starter to make the starter feel unsettled. But I think there's a lot of spaces for value there.
You would not believe how many quarterbacks in the NFL that were journeymen who have exactly 500 records for their career.
Really?
Like Kyle Orton, Brock Osweiler. I just looked up today for a potential for a backup, for the Vikings, because 500 of the connection. Record. Just so many. Jeff Garcia, it's almost exactly 500.
Jeff Garcia was not a journeyman backup. Was journeyman. The second half of his career
he was definitely a journeyman.
He won playoff games and went to Pro Bowl.
58 and 58.
His all-time record.
Yes.
That's a lot of starts. That's a lot of starts.
You're right. But he was for the most part after the early San Francisco.
He did bounce around once. Him and T.O. sort of split up in San Francisco.
Well, we've argued about this a lot, Courtney, about what constitutes a journeyman backup quarterback.
We have 4 teams,
at least 4 teams, which Garcia blows that away.
Okay. It is a bonus, by the way, if or is it a criteria where you have to have second stint with the same team, which I have 2 of those.
Which Garcia had with Philadelphia. He came back in 2009. He had a second stint. That's like a bonus.
I was at that playoff game, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
But he made 4 Pro Bowls, which probably puts him out of the conversation.
Yeah, no, he was definited too good to be a journeyman backup, but he was like a journeyman starter backup. He started
that's his own category.
Yeah, so that's where does Ryan Fitzpatrick just signed with the rest of the AFC East?
How many games he is start? I don't.
Is he a starter? Or is he a journeyman?
Did we go through this before? It was how many teams? It was above 10.
So hold on, it's I saw a great tweet by Rich Eisen yesterday, and it was a picture of Ryan Fitzpatrick, signed his contract. His beard is as big as it's ever been. And he sort of almost felt like he created a character, like signing the armistice deal with Miami or something like that. And I feel like there'd be some great like, faux Andrew Luck or these different random, fake Twitter feeds that are sort of make fun of the person's appearance or type, whatever. The Andrew Luck thing is hilarious, by the way. I'm not sure if you guys follow much of that.
Yes.
But
Civil
he's
War
a Civil
Andrew
War
Luck,
captain or general
Dearest
or something.
mother.
Dearest Beth. But I think there's this thing with Ryan Fitzpatrick in Miami of like the captain of the ship, the tough waters of the Caribbean. I think there's going to be a thing there on Twitter, hopefully at some point soon.